The homies.
Calm down, Greg.
You get fired up, man. This is your show. I'm just living it.
It's your show. You're the host. I'm the guest.
I'm only here for you.
Thanks, Greg.
If you didn't exist, we wouldn't be here.
You would. It'd just be some other guy.
You're irreplaceable.
Thanks, Greg.
What's this?
If we want to compare and contrast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You should give me this earlier. I would have prepared.
I mean, I'm just winging it. I think it's more, Greg, you're trying to be the ESPN countdown show, and I'm trying to have inside
Whatever's
NBA,
lazier.
inside the, just more spontaneous, free flowing.
Oh, we could be spontaneous and free flowing.
Everything doesn't have to be so measured.
Framework is pretty good. Did you retweet?
Of course not.
Please?
Correct.
Retweet to your peoples.
No, and then like some friends might see it, and then like, they're gonna like share it.
Retweet it, damn it!
I don't want friends from anywhere else.
We need our follower. We're just going to promote our stuff, and then we'll be getting started with the show right away, folks. Just sit tight with us.
As a social experiment.
Can you turn your phone off? Because we've never made it.
It's on vibrate.
That didn't work last time.
So when I left LA, I didn't really tell many people. Just to see how long it would take them to figure it out.
Huh.
Part of the social experiment.
How's it going?
I mean, by now people know it's been 4 years, but
Right.
And I didn't make any mention of it on social media or because I don't use Facebook. But it was interesting. A year later, like, hey, like, come down to my party. I'm like, oh, I've been gone for a year.
That's when you know that party sucks too, because they're just like, man, I need to ask anybody. People I haven't talked to in 2 years, 3 years.
They're going deep. They're going deep in their bullpen.
All right, you ready, kid?
I think so.
You just got to hit the retweet button, and then we're good to go.
Are you keeping an eye on the comments?
Yeah, I got them right here. They'll scroll up.
So you got this list from the queue?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm almost cursed right now.
Try not to do that.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we're ready to go then. Yeah?
Yeah, my phone's on silent and...
All right, I'm proud of you. You did it. In 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to the RGVSports.com RGV Hoops podcast. This is a special Boys All-Area Team Unveiling edition.
Get hype, Greg.
To get hype indeed. To do that, I have the one and only man capable of unveiling such a prestigious honor. We have Mario Aguirre, our boys basketball beat writer. Mario, how are you doing today?
I'm okay, I'm good. This is the final. We pull the curtains on the season with this.
Yeah, for us and for the show with John, we're going to be out of your guys' hair for a while here without any shows or anything to talk about. Maybe we'll drop 1 or 2 around state time for some of these other sports, but I think at this point this is going to wrap up the basketball season, and I don't see any reason to avoid getting right into it. So let's talk about... We'll do this like we did with John's show, where we'll go in reverse order. So we'll go second team, first team, superlatives, and then at the end we'll talk about some team stuff.
Word.
So I think probably the best way to start then is to verbally get your sort of honorable mentions. It's not something we actually name or not something we actually put in print, but who were some of the players that you thought about and had a hard time leaving off? Anybody you wish could have gotten a little more recognition? Maybe if there were 6 or 7 spots. You know, what do you think we could have done here? Who were some of the people who just missed?
Okay, there are a few. I'm pulling it up right now. You'll have to excuse me. Nick Mora from Westlake High was one of them. He was the district MVP in 31 6A. It was a 3-way tie for the MVP there. And even though his point average wasn't really eye-popping, he filled up the stat sheet in other ways with rebounds, points, and rebounds, assists, and steals. And missed 9 games this year due to injury, but one in the games that I saw him play, I thought he had an impact along with Justice Free. But Nick Mora was one of the hard cuts to make there at the end. And I'm pulling up the list right now. If you want to fill
One thing that was interesting to me, if we're talking about other guys who just missed, is some of your stat leaders from rebounds or from assists, I believe, didn't end up making the cut. So we can talk about a couple of those kids. There's an Alan East from Rio Grande City who averaged 14.5 rebounds this year.
Yes, Rio Grande City. Rio Grande City, I think part of the hard thing to balance here is team success with their contributions. I guess like with pro teams or college teams, you might hear that those might be empty numbers. In this case, Rio Grande City had a really tough year. and I think they might have won a couple games, but otherwise just struggled this year. The coach missed some time. They had they went in district hobbled and didn't really compete too well this season. They put up a couple fights, but otherwise I think part of the reward here comes with rewarding some of the players that had impact on winning teams.
Also didn't make the cut is the Valley's second leading rebounder. That would be Uvaldo Pequeño from Edinburgh North. He finished the year with 13.4. What about him? Was he close? Did he get any consideration here?
Yeah, he's one of those guys too that was one of those tough cuts to make for second team. You can make the case that he was obviously like in their big three, I guess, so to speak, but was probably the third player there just because his scoring wasn't up to par with Brandon De La Cruz, who averaged 14 points a game, or Kobe Patterson, who averaged 15 and a half. But otherwise, just a tough cut to make. I think any other year he probably would have made it, but he was one of those tough cuts to make too. Brandon was also left out. Brandon De La Cruz, again, averaged 14 points, 2 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and half a steal. And Jacob Anaya from Hidalgo finished the year with 89 3-pointers.
Okay.
I'm not sure where that stands among the Valley leaders.
Seems like it'd have to be up there.
Yeah, it is up there. And Andrew Cantu for Edinburgh, I think, might be the leader, but Jacob Anaya, 13 points, 2.5 steals. Senior for that team, had been a reserve the last couple of years when they won district, and this season after the team graduated their entire starting lineup, he played a prominent role. They were in the district title hunt until the last game. I think they lost by like a point, and that affected some tiebreaker situations, so they lost it, but they advanced to the second round, which I thought was pretty good for that team considering all the turnover.
There's also another kid from Rio Grande City who ended up as the Valley's leader in assists. This is A. Castillo with 7.5 per game. Do you think he got any consideration, or is it the same thing as with the rebounds?
Eric Castillo, yeah, same thing. I just think, again, they played for a team this season that really didn't do too well, and then you have players who averaged around, they were in the vicinity, I guess, but they got, Jacob Alanis, Jacob Salinas, who averaged 6 assists. For Palmview, they were the 3rd seed, and so they made the playoffs. So I think in that sense, you reward the guy who helped lead his team into the playoffs over the player who averaged 2 more assists, and the team didn't really do as well.
Right. So then with that, we can get into the second team, and for this, I'll just mention the guy, I'll read off the stats, and then you give me a sentence or two on each kid. So we'll start with the team we're going to hear a lot about this week, or today on this show, and that's Edinburgh Bella. We'll start with Alec De La Cruz, who was one of the members of their Big Three, a junior forward who averaged 12.9 points, 4.2 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 1.7 steals, and 0.6 blocks. So what did he do to earn some spots on this team?
He usually guarded the opposing team's best player. I think he could play 3 to 5 or 3 to 4. Kind of see him as a stretch 3 for that team. Third year varsity now for that team. Just played a really big role this season. He had a big role too in that game where they beat Alamo Heights and they got off to 25-6 start in the opening quarter to win the regional tournament. And the previous game he had fouled out, and then he came off and really provided a spark for them and helped them advance to state.
Also on the second team, we have a junior forward from Westlaco High, Justice Free. He averaged 10.9 points, 4.7 rebounds, 1.6 steals, and 0.9 blocks. And
the best flat top in the Valley, along with
that's always key
with Rio Grande City coach Ronald Pratt.
But just coach, okay.
Yeah, Ronald Justice, just another great year for Westlaco. That team was district champions in 31-6A. Really provided a lot of energy, a lot of scoring. That team, I think, was pretty balanced. I think they had 6 or 7 players capable of scoring, and he was among their leaders. He was the offensive player of the year in 31-6A, but here we have him on second team just because his 11 points I don't think can really fit what the first team players usually get, like 17 points for the other players we have, 17, 15, 17, 21, 22. So I think it's more second team numbers, but deserving nonetheless.
Moving to the guard position, we have a junior from Mercedes named Bray Rincon, who averaged 18.1 points, 6.4 rebounds, which is impressive for his size, 2.7 assists, and 2.3 steals. Talk to me about Ray Rincon.
Generously listed at like 5'6", 7, I think, but a lot smaller than that. Really took a step up this year, playing a prominent role for Mercedes. They were the number 2 team in 32-5A. They beat Rome in the opening round, and just really did a lot for that team. After just a lot of turnover this year with introducing a new coach and bringing in a couple of new players with Rico, and I believe this was his second year on varsity, but last year played more of a reserve role.
Moving over to the other guard spot, we have Daniel Sotuyo from McAllen Rowe, another junior. Season averages 13.7 points, 1.5 rebounds, 0.9 assists, and 1.0 steals.
I think he's Rowe's best player. Been there now for at least 2 years in a prominent role. They were second in district, and they I consider an upset. They upset Wesco High. I say that just because in our top 10 rankings all year we had Wesco ahead of Rowe, and yet Rowe beat Wesco in part just by swarming Justice Free with some of their smaller players. But Sotoya has been a good shooter for them the last couple of years as they've tried to make up for some of their just height deficiencies with their outside shooting.
Rounding out the second team, we have a 5th junior. That's another guard from Sharyland Pioneer, and that is Jordan Wilson. He averaged 14.1 points, 2.3 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 1.8 steals, and a block per game.
Wilson transferred from Harlingen South. Really did well for Pioneer this season, gave him a different look from the year before. Again, second-year program, and was the leading scorer for that team, helped them get into the playoffs and win a playoff series. They lost in the second round to an out-of-valley school, but was competitive nonetheless, athletic. I think he could play 3 positions, 1 through 3, and just overall good talent. First year seeing him here in the Upper Valley, and expect a lot of good things from him next year.
With 5 juniors on this team, they're all presumably going to be back in these same kind of roles next year. If you had to put money on one guy as a surefire lock to be first team next year, who would it be?
Jordan Wilson.
Jordan Wilson, you think? Why him?
I think he's one of the more athletic players there. He athletic, quick, has good height, does a little bit of everything for that team. I think for a guard even, I think it's impressive that he has 1 block. I think that might be the leader among all guards that we have here. So I just think he does everything for that team. And then next year, it'll be his 3rd varsity season, I think, and I think he'll take the next step, just whatever he does with this offseason.
So with that, we can move into the first team, and the first guy off the first team is Hector Ruiz, a senior forward from Edinburgh Bella. He averaged 17.1 points, 3.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and 2.5 steals per game. Now, this is an interesting stat line for him because he was part of a big 3 here with De La Cruz and with Ryan Garza, who we'll get to a little bit later. So if Hector Ruiz had been on a team where he was the primary scorer and he was asked to carry the load, what do you think he would have been capable of? How would his numbers might have looked different?
I think as the second, I mean, at times this season I thought Hector, I think, kind of alleviated some of the scoring burden from Ryan. But it's tough to say because I think you could make the case that maybe some of those opportunities opened up because he had another capable scorer who played alongside him. But I think Hector's also a really good one-on-one player, which you can't take away just regardless of who he plays with. I think he's a good one-on-one player. Just one of the things with him, he's a good outside shooter, and he's good with his back to the basket and backing down. Just about any player. I've never really seen him pushed around by anyone that's guarding him. So I think he'd probably average a little bit more, but I think it's kind of hard to measure how much is because he had other capable scorers with him this year.
Next up on the first team, we have the only not senior to make the first team, and this is a junior forward from Edinburgh North, Kobe Patterson. He was the co-district MVP in 31-6A and had 15.5 points, 6.7 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1.5 steals, and a little more than half a block per game. He didn't rank at the top of any of these stats categories, but it seemed like he chipped in a little bit of everywhere. How much is the versatility key to him earning this spot?
A lot, because I think he fills up the stat sheet more than anyone else, and he's the best player for that team, for Edinburgh North. Really did a lot for that team. I thought he was a senior before the season. I didn't really remember him too much last year, but just the way that he played, the way he carried himself. Out of all these players, I think I'd consider him to be a gamer, just really stepped up in big games, didn't really shy away. The second round game against McAllen Memorial doesn't look too good just because the team as a whole faded, but I thought He really did a lot for that team. Just had the size of a 4 in the Valley and really could play any one of those positions 1 through 4.
Next up on the first team, we have a senior forward from McCallum Memorial. That is DJ Johnson. He averaged 16.5 points, 4.6 rebounds, 1.7 assists, a little less than half a steal, and almost a block per game. I know we consider him to be one of the most talented and athletic players in the Valley. Did you feel like his season lived up to what he was capable of?
I think he realized his potential. I still think he has a lot of upside. Injuries played a factor in him not really playing up to par last year. Coach told me that he played a little bit hesitant at times and didn't really trust his body, but I think this year he really took the next step. Even when I saw him like early in district or early in the preseason, I think selfishly I wanted him to really just dominate the game, but he was kind of playing within the flow of the game and kind of being part of that offense as opposed to just dominating it. But I thought this has been his best showing so far, and I think he tapped in his talent, but I don't think he's really totally filled it. I think he has a long way to go.
Next up on the first team, we have Andrew Cantu, a senior guard from Edinburgh High. 20.3 points per game, making him one of the Valley's leaders, 2.9 rebounds, 1.9 assists, and 1.1 steals per game. You mentioned that he was one of 2 seniors on this team. Did he get a bonus for any kind of leadership or intangibles that he brought to the table for them?
Yeah, I think so, just because that team finished 3rd in district. They had 8 or 9 players on the team, where they suited up 8 or 9 players, and some of them, my understanding was, they just needed to put in people just to fill out the team, because
Right.
I think you need a minimum 2 play games. I think in the NBA it's like 8 players. I don't know what it is in high school, but I'm sure it's roughly there. And Edinburgh High took a hit with the split with Edinburgh Vella, and so they've kind of been low on numbers the last couple of years. But yeah, he really did a lot for this team. Obviously, carried the scoring load. It was him and R.J. Rocha, the other senior, who was there with double figures. But I thought he did really well this year, considering that it was just Andrew and R.J. as the only returners or returning starters on that team. So I think they might have even exceeded expectations a little bit.
And we round out the first team with another senior guard, this one from La Jolla Palmview, and the second leading scorer in the Valley. This is Jacob Salinas. He averaged 21 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals per game. And you told me he was a reserve last year. What did he do to improve from that role a year ago to where he is now as the All-Valley first team guy?
This is the second year in a row that Palmview has had to deal with turnover, and last year they graduated their whole starting lineup. And so Jacob, I think naturally just got a look just there to start at point guard. And part of it, I remember asking the coach before district if part of that was just a matter of just getting minutes, or if he actually improved. And he said that he's really been committed and considers them to be the most, if not the most, one of the more competitive players that he's had at Palmview in all these years. And says that he doesn't really shy away from competition. He'll challenge Coach Science to one-on-one games, and Jacob is probably 5'6", 5'7", where Coach Andy Science might be 6'6". So doesn't shy away from competition at all. Really put in a lot of work this off season to get better. Really flourished in that role, and he was their leading scorer by far. And I just think he really did a lot for that team and trying to rally them to the playoffs.
We have 2 dynamic scorers here at the guard spots, with Andrew Cantu at 20 points and Jacob Salinas at 21. How do you compare their games? What do they do similarly or differently? How do they get those points?
Well, Jacob is a point guard, so he has the ball a lot of times in his hands, and whereas Andrew is more swingman, shooting guard.
Okay.
And so Jacob, like I said, Jacob just has possession of the ball the whole time. This season, I didn't really see too much support. I think it might have been, he was the leading scorer, obviously, with 21 points on his team. And then there was Armando Alanis, who was around 11 or 12. But for the most part, I just think he knew when to take over, whereas Andrew had to rely a little bit more on his point guard, kind of distributing or giving him the ball. But yeah, I mean, that's just the difference in them. Jacob's the point guard and Andrew's the shooting guard, swingman.
To get people caught up, our second team was Alec De La Cruz, junior forward from Edinburgh Vella, Justice Free, junior forward from Westlaco High, Ray Rincon, a junior guard from Mercedes, Daniel Fituyo, a junior guard from McAllen Rowe, and Jordan Wilson, a junior guard from Sharyland Pioneer. And the first team was Hector Ruiz, a senior forward from Edinburgh Vella, Kobe Patterson, a junior forward from Edinburgh North, DJ Johnson, a senior forward from McCallum Memorial, Andrew Cantu, a senior guard for Edinburgh High, and Jacob Salinas, a senior guard for La Jolla Pondview. So with that, we're ready to move into the superlatives. Mario, where do you want to start?
I'd like to start Newcomer of the Year.
You will take Newcomer of the Year for 500. Okay. Yeah. This 6'4" sophomore from Edinburgh High, I can't do a whole Jeopardy question.
It sounded like it.
His name is Jesus Cantu. He was voted a team captain this year as just a sophomore. He averaged 9.3 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 0.9 of a block. So was captaining and leadership a factor in his selection, or did it come down more to the production on the court?
I think it's production, and then later I found out about the captain title because Andrew had it, but I think he might have been co-captains, but I think it's impressive nonetheless that a sophomore gets voted in by his teammates, especially when they have two other seniors on the team. So I was really impressed with that. Jesus came from Edinburgh, idea Quest, then he had to sit out a year. So last year for his freshman year, he played on the JV team. And this year, remember when I went to the RGV Basketball Coaches Association thing, their coach was telling me how he expected big things out of Jesus, and with the graduation of some of the players, he really thought he'd play a prominent role. Inside, he was the tallest player, and just really, at that point, even before he had seen him compete against varsity players, he just thought that he'd really have a good season, and he did, because he almost averaged a double-double, which only a handful of other players have done this year in the Valley.
I think in the process of making this team, the Newcomer of the Year spot ended up being one of the toughest calls. Who were some of the other people who were considered for that, or who else just missed? Who did we consider, who did we think about, and what was the deciding factor here?
Well, Derek De Leon was the other candidate. He was the Newcomer of the Year by the RGV Basketball Coaches Association. Miguel Memorial did not have a good year. And
Mission Vets?
Yes. Mission Vets didn't have a good year. And Derek averaged 8.4 points and 2.3 assists, whereas Jesus averaged a near double-double and also had close to a block. And Mission Veterans also did not make the playoffs. In fact, they were at the bottom of District 31 5A. So considering that Jesus competed for, really helped a playoff team, a third seed, get in with really just a young team, I think I give the credit there to Jesus for being able to do that for a winning team.
Anybody else who was in the running for this spot, or did it really come down to two at the end?
Let's see, the other ones were Dante Galvan for PSG North, freshman. He was the PSG North finished 5th in that district, and he was the second best scorer for that team. The thing with PSG North is that they started the year, I thought they had a really good chance of making the playoffs, and they had like a 4 to 5 game slide, fell out of contention, but he really did a lot for that team, averaged 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and a little more than a steal. So you kind of want to give I think it's impressive that he did it to freshmen. You want to give him the nod there because he did it just in his first year in high school, but Jesus was close to doing what few people have done in the Valley, which is a double-double, and I think you reward that, especially considering that he helped the playoff team get there. And then there's a couple others with Garrett Marrakis for Mac High. He's a junior, and then Nigel Anderson, a junior for PSG Memorial. I guess if we're trying to narrow this down, you could make the case against Garrett that he's a junior, whereas Jesus is a sophomore, right, and Dante's a freshman. And then with Nigel Anderson, he this year was one of the better players for PSG Memorial, but again, they only won, I think it was 2 district games this year, and the team really struggled. So it's I guess trying to strike that right balance between just production and overall how that contributes to team success.
Yeah, and they may be newcomers to varsity, but I think we like to lean a little bit younger when we can, just in the spirit of the rule there. So, yeah. Moving on to Defensive Player of the Year, we have Jonathan Sanchez from McCallum Memorial, a 6'7" senior forward who averaged 9.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.1 assists, and 1.6 blocks per game. And in reading about Jonathan a little bit, he did some other things that helped them out, like making outlet passes and things like that. So why did he end up being the district MVP in 36A over somebody like DJ Johnson, who we talked about earlier?
I think just talking with coaches, I think with Jonathan, he missed a couple games this year because he went to take visits for colleges for football, where he ultimately signed with Rice. But just my understanding was when Jonathan was there, just really disrupted shots. Even though I think this part of the thing too, he averaged a block and a half, but that doesn't really count for the shots that that teams didn't take because of his presence there.
Right, or that he altered a little bit.
Yeah, and so with Jonathan, my understanding was when he played in games, they won by a lot, whereas when he wasn't there and they had one less big, the team won by a slimmer margin. Whereas DJ, I think with DJ, at least in my case, I just think you always expect more. At least with me, he's a foot taller than almost everyone here in the Valley. And I think you want him to average a triple-double because of that. I mean, he has D1 schools looking at him, and I'm sure he'll sign with the D1 school pretty soon. But I mean, Jonathan was voted the district MVP, the Basketball Coach Association Defensive Player of the Year. I just think he really made a big difference for that team that really emphasized defense, even though it doesn't look like it because they have a lot of talent and they have capable scorers. But I think he really helped put these games out of reach just with his defense. A lot of these games, they won in the third quarter, and Coach Cortez was telling me how DJ sometimes wouldn't play the fourth quarter because they were up by so much, kind of like the Steph Curry thing where his numbers might have suffered a little bit because he didn't really play the whole game in these blowouts. And Memorial went on to go undefeated in district.
Coach of the Year went to, I don't think there's any surprise here, went to Lalo Rios of Edinburgh Vela. This team went 35-3, and I think, as our listeners have probably heard by now, made it to the state tournament this year, which is the first time it's been done by a Class 5A or 6A school here. That really is enough for me to say that there probably wasn't much doubt about this one. But did you ever consider going any other way with this award?
I think you could have made a case for it in the area round or the third round. Maybe in the third quarter of the third round because Edinburgh Vela was losing and needed like a 25-8 run or something like that to win in the second or third round. I forget who was against, but one of those games. And at that point, you might have made a case for someone else. But just considering all the success they had this year, I think it'd either have to be him. Maybe I think if they didn't go to state or they didn't make the regional tournament, you could have made a case for Sam Cortez and Miguel Memorial because they went undefeated in district, and which only Vela has done this year, but they went undefeated in district, and they only lost to one Valley school this year, PSG North, and Edinburgh Vela also only lost to one Valley school this year, McAllen Rowe, and that was the last non-district game of the year. So if you wanted to make a case, you probably could have said Sam Cortez or Lalo Rios, but I think just with the kind of resume they had this year and just everything they did this year, it was a no-brainer.
We've talked a lot about Rios and how he's built the program and the substitution patterns and a lot of his commitment to coaching and how much that impacts his day-to-day life and the commitment that he has to the game. Is there anything else that you want to say about him before we get out of here?
No, I think next year will be really interesting just because they're losing a handful of seniors. I think they're losing 11 seniors. They're going to retain 2 out of 3 players from their big three with Ryan Garza and Alec De La Cruz. So it'll be interesting to see how they try to reload around those two while moving up to Class 6A. So I think he'll have a challenge next year moving up to 6A.
All right, Mario, it's time for Player of the Year. Last week, John gave me a killer drum roll. You got anything for me? Nice, okay. I got to get the voice ready again. Keep it going. The Player of the Year for the Monitors All-Area team is Ryan Garza, a junior guard from Edinburgh Vela. He averaged 18.7 points, 4.6 rebounds, 4.7 assists, and 4.1 steals, all very impressive numbers, and obviously had a huge impact on this team, making it as far as they did and earning Rios Coach of the Year and all the things that went into their success this year. So talk to me about Ryan Garza's career in general and how much he's developed from the start of his time till now, because I think he came in as more of just a spot-up shooter.
Somewhat of a playmaker last year. He took over. He was a starter last year. After they lost some of their players, he was the captain of this team. Played a lot of travel ball, AAU. I remember talking to him during the off season. He was in Vegas playing in a tournament there. Played 4 games or so, but really developed his shot a little bit more. Probably the team's best 3-point shooter, along with Hector Ruiz, but I think he's always had the playmaker capabilities. I remember asking him when I interviewed him earlier this week just which player he modeled his game after, and he said Manu Ginobili, which I guess comes as no surprise because that's...
You said that to me before he said that to you.
Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious just the way that he I mean, you've even seen the highlights, or just the way that he looks out there, just left-handed, taller point guard. I guess for the Valley, he's probably 5'11", taller than most point guards here. Again, lefty, has a little bit of Euro step, 3-point shooter, can drive to the basket. I think just does a lot for that team overall, and he might be like one of 2 players in the Valley to be a stat leader in the 4 categories that we keep track of with points, rebounds, assists, and steals.
Right. Now, I'll ask you sort of the same thing that I asked about Hector Ruiz, and this is what kind of a season or what kind of numbers could he have put up if he wasn't a part of such a strong team around him, if he wasn't one of a big 3? Would he have scored 20 points a game, 25 points a game, 30 points a game? What do you think his ceiling is in a situation where it's just built around him?
Well, we'll know that next year, because next year that might be the case, because they're bringing up a lot of JV players. But I think with him this season, this year I'm not sure what more he could have done. I remember asking the coach that this week, just what more can you expect out of a guy who's a stat leader in just about every category, averages more rebounds, I think, than any other guard, along there with Jacob Salinas of La Jolla Palmview, who's a little bit shorter than he is. But I'm not sure. I mean, I think part of it too is that he's a point guard and a playmaker, so you could always find a way to impact the game if his shots aren't going through. So you could probably imagine that maybe his assist could go up if he's double teamed and just could find open guys. But I think he could do a little bit more. I remember when I was talking to Coach Rios this week, he was saying how the big 3, their stats kind of suffered in a way because they didn't really rely too much on one guy. They spread it out. It wasn't a case, he said, where Ryan averaged 30 and then everyone else averaged 10 points or less. Like they really had a lot of balance there with 3 double-digit scores on that team.
One of the people on Periscope wanted to know is if you think Ryan Garza has a chance to play D1.
I think the height factor might come into play, and maybe the speed. I don't really think he's lightning quick. He's a good playmaker and finds holes and can really get to the basket, but I'm not sure if physically speaking he might get a look.
Yeah, it seems like the kind of thing where you would want to have more of that raw talent and just the measurables, in terms of like vertical leap and height and 40-yard dash or whatever they time in basketball for that speed test. So
I guess you could make the case like DJ Johnson. Like DJ Johnson
right.
is a first teamer, but he's more of a D1 prospect, I think, than Ryan Garza is at this point.
But who knows what happens with the offseason with Ryan Garza now he comes back looking next year. We don't want to say never, but it seems unlikely at this point.
You think he's going to grow 8 inches?
8 inches is kind of a lot, but you can. If you watch the NCAA tournament, there's some guards who are 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2".
They're really quick though.
Pick up a little bit. Listen, you get into your sports training institute or whatever, and you come back a little bit better. Maybe. I'm just saying we don't want to rule it out just yet. So we can close out the show. Let's talk about the teams and how they shook out in your final top 10. I think pretty obviously Edinburgh Bella was number 1. Then McAllen Memorial took the number 2 spot. McAllen Rowe rose up to number 3. Santa Rosa rose up to number 4 from being unranked. Los Fresnos was number 5. Westaco High number 6. Edinburgh North number 7. Brownsville Vets number 8. Sterling Pioneer number 9. And Brownsville Pace number 10. So really the big movers on this from where we were at the end of the year is how did Santa Rosa go from being unranked to being our number 4 team?
So they are in class 30. They're in District 32, 3A. They're a 3A school, and I think people have different interpretations of what the top 10 should be. I think some coaches will say, well, if you're a district champion, you should be there because it automatically means you're the best of that district, and there's only a half dozen districts in the valley. But if you want to take the other approach where it's who could be who one-on-one, then I'm not sure if early in the year you could say, well, this 2A school could beat a 6A school.
Right.
Like last time, people would make the case, well, this team went to state, or like say, for example, this is an extreme example, but say I think it was a Mission Idea that went to the state tournament last year, and they weren't in our top 10. And if you want to just stick to their line of thinking, you could say, well, then Mission Idea should be the number 1 team because they won state. But I don't think anyone believes that Mission Idea would be either one of the top 10 teams in our ranking. So Santa Rosa, like any school that's really 4A or below or 3 and below, might kind of be victim to just the thinking that 3A schools can't compete with 6A schools or 5A schools or any one of the higher classifications. But I think this year they were 1 point away from going to state. Had another great year. It would have been, I think it was the second time since 2009 or something. But I think they really impressed people. I didn't see them going this far this year, but I've known about Leo Lara now for a couple of years and really thought that he'd be obviously the leader of that team. Really, pretty much leads every team at that school. But I didn't think he'd have. I didn't think he'd go this far as a team. But I think in doing so, I think you have to reward that, and that's how they leapfrog all these teams and got to number 4 in our ranking.
Yeah, Leo Lara ended the year as the Valley's leading scorer with 23.3 points per game. But I didn't really get it. I know you talked about the different philosophies, but did you give me your take? Would they be able to beat a team like Los Fresnos or Westlake higher, or are you just sort of grading them on a curve here?
I think at that point it's interesting. Like at that point, I think you could kind of make the case, well, it's a 3A school that was 1 point away from the state versus Los Fresnos, which was out in the third round.
Right.
So in that case, I think they kind of overcome any stigma of them being a 3A team, and especially because they have Leo Lara, who, I mean, this is the all-area team, but I think when the all-valley thing comes out later on with our award thing, I think Leo Lara would have to be considered for Player of the Year along with Ryan Garza and some of the other MVPs there.
The only other team that really moved more than 1 or 2 spots in this thing is McAllen Rowe jumping from 5 to 3, which is just a 2-spot move, but gets them into our top 3 to close out the year. Just a product of them beating Westlake, or what did they show you to close out the season?
Yeah, because the last couple of years they really haven't had height, and I thought at some point that would come back to bite them, and I didn't really see them beating Westlake. I think Westlake was the overwhelming favorite. I had them, I remember before the game when we were signing that game, I thought they would win by 10 or 15 points. And then Rolla ends up taking like a 21-point lead, I think it was, by halftime. And really surprised a lot of people, I think. So they came in, I think, with a good approach in that game. They knew what they wanted to do. They wanted to get Justice free in foul trouble. They wanted to really pressure him and just force Westlake to make bad decisions. And I think they really, they really surprised a lot of people and just came in with a good game plan.
One of our viewers on Periscope is talking up a young Los Fresnos squad. I'm curious, who are your teams to watch for next year? Who do you think is going to bring a lot back or might be able to make some noise next season?
With Los Fresnos, I believe they're graduating Hugo de la Cruz, who's a big player for them. Also was a stat leader, and he was like in the top 15 in just about everything. He averaged 20 points a game. And really did a lot for that team. Now 3 years in a row with that team. I'm not sure how they're gonna reload once they lose him. But Los Fresnos is the biggest school in the valley, if I'm not mistaken, and they're always reloading. All their teams make the playoffs, it seems, in every sport. So I wouldn't rule them out, even though they're graduating one of the valley's best players.
Anybody else you think could be strong next season? What teams are going to be the ones to watch?
For next season. That's tough. Vela,
obviously, the Player of the Year is coming back, so that helps a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking actually about a couple of days ago, just where Vela might rank in the preseason poll, considering they're losing 11 seniors and Hector Ruiz, their second leading scorer. Let's see, McAllen Rowe, because they return Daniel Setullo, who's their leading scorer. Santa Rosa, because Leo Lara is coming back next year. Wesco has some good juniors. Edinburgh North, obviously, with Kobe Patterson for coming around for the final, the farewell tour. And Sheridan Pioneer with another year of Jordan Wilson. And Mike Madrigal, they're I think he's like 6'5" post. Arguably their second best player, so they should be good.
So then with that, I guess we're ready to call it a show, huh?
We are.
We will keep an eye on those guys for next year. Hopefully you guys enjoyed hanging out with us and getting an early look at this. If you're listening on the podcast, I've been addressing our Periscope viewers throughout the show, and you can find us on Periscope at RGV Sports. Is that right, Mario?
It is right.
I don't know how the Periscope thing works.
Yeah, it is RGV Sports. It's the same thing as the Twitter handle.
But if they just download the Periscope app and search RGV Sports, they can subscribe to us.
It's at RGV Sports.
So that's what you guys need to do there. But you'll also get alerts for that every time we do one of these shows. It'll go out on Twitter at RGV Sports. If we remember, it'll go posted on Facebook at RGVSports.com. That's where all of our stories go up day to day too. You can also find everything, obviously, at RGVSports.com. And on Twitter, we are individually. I'm at Greg Luca. And Mario, where can they find you?
Mario_Aguirre.
So that's where you find Mario. And he will have some stuff coming up. What are you working on now? You're doing softball season?
Yeah, I think softball's in season. Softball and RGVFC Toros.
Oh, yeah.
Softball, we're closing out the first round of district. A lot of good teams out there. I haven't really had a chance to get out to too many games because basketball season went a little bit longer than I anticipated. Then we have soccer going on. Soccer's in the playoffs, and we have baseball. So a lot of things keeping us busy, but my attention, I guess, going forward until the end of the season is softball and RGVFC Toros, who opened the season today, which I guess by the time people hear the podcast, the game might actually be done. So you might actually be...
I bet there's going to be a replay on the YouTube.com if you're really that into it. Or you can read Mario's story, that's even better.
Yes, I'll have a gamer, and I don't know, by the time they hear this podcast, they might be 1-0 already.
Yeah, probably not. I'm going to be covering high school soccer throughout the rest of the playoffs. We got some teams I think could go pretty far.
Who's going to go first? Who's the last team standing?
For the girls, I think it'll be one of the Sherryland schools. For the boys, Valley View is good. McAllen High is really good. Horace Lincoln's coming around a little bit. I don't know. There's a lot that have a chance to make a run, but we'll have to see how it goes the next couple of weeks.
Anyone going to state?
If they were, it would be one of those teams on the girls' side. I have to say no. I don't know that they have any precedent of doing that. It's been a while since they got that far. On the boys' side, where they've had some more success, I really don't know what the 6A competition looks like, but I think McAllen High and Horace Lincoln are going to be hard-pressed. Valley View might have a shot at it, but I think a lot of the good teams are on the Brownsville side. I shouldn't neglect them because I just think about the guys that I cover here at the Monitor. In terms of going to state, I think Brownsville Porter in 5A is probably the best bet.
Oh, yeah.
They've been our number one team all year. They've rolled through district. That's a team to really watch. And the 32 6A teams swept the 31 6A teams in the by-district round for on the boys' side too. So any of them could be a state qualifier over there too. So
how's 32 5A? How did they do?
32 5A did pretty well against 31 5A. I really thought I covered the game where 31 5A basically had two good teams, but on the boys' side it was Sherryland High and it was Valley View. And PSJ Southwest was the number 3 seed in 32 5A. This is a team that made it pretty far into regionals last year. So I was really impressed that they were able to hang with Valley View and really gave them a game, and they were down one of their best players to a red card issue too. So I think 32 5A is the lower valley is pretty superior when it comes to soccer. I think that goes without saying, but that doesn't mean that our teams up here on the Monitor side don't have a decent shot at making some runs here. So
no, we'll beat them any day.
You can keep with me and at RGV Sports for that stuff. Our guy John LaFollette is going to be covering track. We'll have you with any Vipers coverage you might want. And Mario, what else you got for me?
I think it's also worth noting, just to clear up any confusion, that this is the Monitor's all-area team, and the Herald and the Valley Morning Star sister papers also have theirs. And then at the end of the year, we're going to have an All-Valley Award show in June, I believe. So this is just the Monitor's coverage area, which goes from Mercedes to Roma.
Right. So basically we leave out 32 6A and half of 32 5A, something like that?
Yeah.
And then like Port Isabel's not in there. And
32 4A, half of it is not here. 32 3A is not here. 32 2A, we only have a couple teams. But if you didn't hear any of the teams east of Mercedes, that's the reason.
Right. So then I guess with that, we're ready to call it a show and a season. Mario, do you have any last words for the people?
No, we'll be back stronger next year.
Sounds good to me. Periscope Universe, questions? Anything?
Greg, why do you hate the Toros?
I just think they're not good.
Yo.
Look, he's wearing his Toros number 1 jersey.
What's up?
So,
John in the house. Say hi to the people.
hello, people.
Hope you showed up.
I need 3 boys players for the 3-point shootout.
Well, this is good. We're going to do this on the Periscope.
Yeah, you could. That would be dope.
Okay, Ryan Garza.
Okay.
JP says, "What up?"
What up?
Ryan Garza. Okay, let me look at the roster.
Got Samantha Gutierrez at Palmview, Jaslyn Muniz from Westaco, and Asher Smith from Mission Vets.
That helps me. Okay. Let's see, for the boys, 3. So, Kobe Patterson.
Yes.
Can we put him in the dunk contest too? And
What about your kid from Hidalgo? The one who hit like 89 threes? That seems like the homie.
Leo Lara.
Santa Rosa.
That's the homie too.
I'd say Ray Rincon, but Greg has a vendetta.
Just because I could guard him doesn't mean I have a vendetta.
Okay. Cool.
No dunk contest this year?
No dunk contest. We good?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
All right, Periscope people, we're out of here. We'll see you next time. Oh, buzzer beater? Any chance a Lower Valley writer joins the podcast next year?
They'd have to drive over here, or maybe we could do the phone interview if we get the software to do that, and find a way to incorporate it just to mesh all these things together.
Yeah, to pull back the curtain a little bit, they have an earlier deadline than us, so when we do it late night during the week, they're already home at that point, so it becomes pretty awkward to schedule it. Something like this they could have been, but unfortunately we've stopped doing All Valley, so it becomes a little pointless
there's
to,
no
even,
point to
even have them here for a show like this one, because it's none of their guys anyway. And JP, we had Jonathan Sanchez was our defensive player of the year for the Monitors All-Area team. We talked about him on the show, so definitely worth going back and downloading the podcast or hitting the replay button on this thing.
And giving a like on YouTube.
Oh yeah, likes on YouTube are good too. All right, guys, peace out.